Hello everybody and welcome to Langer's Legion. I'm Langer and let's talk Star Wars Legion. And in today's video we're going to recap the topics that came up in day one of AMG's Ministravaganza 2023 that took place earlier today via their live stream. And specifically we're going to talk about SpecOps. So let's get into it. Today was day one of AMG's Ministravaganza for 2023, and while they covered topics for Marvel Crisis Protocol, Shatterpoint, today the one topic around Star Wars Legion that he got into was the Special Operations beta that they kicked off back, I believe, in the first of the year around May or February timeline. And in today's session they had Will Schick, who's the head of product development, Andrew Dursum, a game developer, as well as Will Pagnini, I hope I'm saying that right, Will, who is the development manager. So they spent the time going through first half of the session, just walking through what it's like to kind of build a game mode from scratch, kind of what they were looking for, what they were looking to accomplish. And while I'm going to get into some of that, I won't spend all of the time in this video digging into that, because of course you could just go watch the stream if you wanted all those details, which I will link down below. But I will kind of just cover some of the highlights, obviously, to keep it short. So the first thing I asked is, why special operations? Star Wars Legion already has a skirmish mode, the 500-point army mode that's already kind of built into the game. And what they were talking about is they said they were looking for a more traditional skirmish game that you see in popular tabletop war games. Now, I'm not anywhere near expert on any of the other ones beyond Star Wars Legions, and not saying I'm an expert in Legion, but the only other game that I know that's got kind of a smaller skirmish mode is Kill Team for Warhammer, so I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. But they wanted to talk about it as bringing more of an individual approach as opposed to a full army or a full unit like you see with Star Wars Legion. So with these squads that you only have, 6 or so minis, it's going to be more about that specific unit with the unit card and how they operate and move on the field as opposed to moving as a unit. So they also wanted to provide that so you can get a little bit more customization to those units. They use the Stormtrooper example. Obviously, if you're going for a very thematic approach, the Stormtroopers are always going to be pretty much black and white. But in this one, you maybe want to create a special forces of Stormtrooper where there are different colors, or for different rebel units, so on and so forth. So they just wanted to open up the door to some additional creativity. The other thing they talk about is they wanted it to be heavily objective based, as opposed to wiping your table or tabling your opponent to kind of win the match. It's more about obtaining those objectives. And I believe the direct quote was, "Crush your opponent's soul."
Games were much more about telling a story with your opponent rather than trying to crush their soul.
So with that, let's talk about, kind of some of the gameplay. And what I was interested in is I remembered some of the rules on the AMG website. It was like in a Google Doc or a Word doc or something. It wasn't very formalized, right? Because again, it was a beta. They're probably changing and getting feedback. So while this live stream was going on, I'm the guy that asks the question of, hey, where is the document that covered this before? And it was a little bit of an early warning spoiler of, obviously their point at the end of this was to announce that Special Operations was going to be a full game mode and no longer in beta. So that's why you see the little drum roll. So that was kind of a little trip up during the stream, but it was kind of funny. Getting into the gameplay again. So the mechanics are similar, the same. Still you got activation, you still have commands. There's 2 available squad types to the 4 factions in this game. So sorry, Shadow Collective, you're not in SpecOps, but you got the GARs, the CISs, Empire, and Rebels per usual. But each of those units, like I said, have 2 squad types per faction. They've got a general squad, and then they kind of have a, let's call it a special forces or a special unit squad that you get a pick from. The other thing in this one is, while you can still use the regular movement tools, the range 1, range 2, range 3 that we're all accustomed to, you will not be using the range tools for weaponry. You're actually going to go back to the tried and true tape measure to measure out distances on the game board for where your units can attack. And obviously this is because for the skirmish mode, you're playing on a 3x3 board, and if you're using range 2 and 3 weapons, I mean, range 3 is like almost 18 inches, if not exactly 18 inches, if I recall. So I mean, you're already basically shooting halfway across the board. So they needed to shrink that a little bit to probably get the game mechanics just right. There are no command cards specifically on how we think about them, though there are command cards, meaning like there's command cards that you will all get, but they're already predefined. There's not like special cards or 1 pips or 2 pips or whatever based off a hero unit that you might have in your army. So the command cards are broken down to, there's 3 faction specific cards. So whichever squad type you take, you're always going to get 3 faction cards that can be used. And then there's squad specific cards. So again, if you use the Special Forces squad or use the trooper cards, you're going to get different command cards there. And of course, there's the always tried and true standing orders. And the reason they talked about this is they said this would make it easier to balance the game in the future if they make additional changes or make those changes faster, because you're not going to have this wide plethora of command cards. They've got a little bit more narrow focused down to what's available on the game or on the game. Along with that command card and no points to build your armies, how you choose who's red or blue comes down to dice rolls. I don't remember the specific ones. I'll link the rule document down below again, just so you can kind of dig into that. But basically, you're going to roll dice, and if it all comes blanks or if a certain amount, somebody's going to be red and somebody's going to be blue. So that is not dependent on who's got the lowest army score, and you're choosing what side of the table. Along with that, there are no longer battle decks, right? So once you choose who's red or blue, you and your opponent are just basically going to agree upon one of the 4 mission types to play. So you're not building your army with the lower pip and then kind of hand-picking what's, your battle deck that's going to hopefully favor you in the, end result outcome. You're just going to pick one of the missions and then you're going to go for it with your opponent. And I mentioned that there's no points, right? So again, since you're not building an army with units and adding upgrade cards and these other things, you have these concepts of loadouts. So this is kind of how you're going to give your units some extra oomph or some extra special cards to use. So basically there's 3 double-sided cards per squad, again back to the Special Forces or the troopers. And before you deploy units, so basically after you choose the mission type and who's red or blue, you're going to pick what cards you're going to use. You're going to pick whether you use the A side or the B side, and obviously each side is going to have different effects on it. Then you're going to reveal to your opponent which card you're going to use. And these cards have things, to add suppression tokens, keep dodge tokens, surge to hit, these types of things. Things that we're all accustomed to, but just again, a different mechanic to not having like these upgrade slots. You're going to have these units with predefined skills or keywords, and then you're going to use these loadouts to kind of change their unit behavior, probably dependent on the mission type that you're playing. And let's talk about those 4 missions. So like I said, there's 4 missions in SpecOps, and the first one is called Bring Down the Shields, where the blue player is going to be attacking, obviously, to try to bring down the shields, and the red player is going to be trying to defending those objective markers, as you see here on the map, on the game board. Obviously, you can see that's, like I said, it's measured out in inches, so you see the 16 and the 8 edges to figure out where you're going to put these tokens. Very obviously similar to Shatterpoint, if you've seen how Shatterpoint is played. So that'll be a fun one. Transmit the codes. A crack squad has stolen the codes to the vault and is attempting to get them back to command. This is for those folks that want to play maybe a little Rogue One, trying to get the transmissions of the Death Star plans, up to the Rebel fleet. So you've got blue players trying to transmit the codes. Red player obviously is trying to stop them. There's a cool mechanic to this one where the blue player gets to set up like some decoy or dummy, transmission. So the red player has to kind of choose or figure out which one is which. So there's a little bit of cat and mouse going on this one. So it's not just straightforward as like, oh, I know they're going to point A or whatever on the map. I'm just going to try and cut them off there. One that I think that sounds really interesting is this one called Disabled the Vehicle, where basically the blue player places a disabled vehicle in the middle of the map, puts their units surrounding that, all within base contact, and they're trying to defend it from all sides, as you can see from the map here, from the red attacking force. This kind of reminds me of, a little bit of, Black Hawk Down from a movie perspective. You're trying to hold off these infantry folks that are coming in to get you until your reinforcements can relieve you or get you out. And if you looked at some of the previous transmissions from the AMG team. They all went around and kind of built their own disabled vehicle and theme with this mission mode. So we've got an AA5 truck with some Sabine Wren graffiti on it. Very timely, obviously, with the Ahsoka show out right now. You've got an LAAT downed, you know, for the GAR, again, kind of similar to Black Hawk Down for me, or at least that's what I took out of it. The gentleman that painted this one even says in the blog post, he mentions a downed helicopter. So maybe there's a reference point there. I'm just guessing. We have an AAT from the CIS with some smoke coming out of the turret and the cockpit, which looks really cool. As well as a GAR TX-130 that's got some damage in that left, I guess I'll call it the left front fender, that's causing that one from not moving. So I'll link to the blog post on this one down below as well, because there's some great pictures of these besides the ones that I've shown here. And finally, kind of one that's actually more symmetrical, as far as, let's call it more even than the other ones, is you have this shifting priorities. As you can see on the map, on the left and the right, each player's kind of got an easier token to get, and then you're going to be fighting over basically the middle one of this one. So it's pretty easy, probably a very basic game mode, probably more balanced that way, so you don't, maybe you're newer, learning the rules or whatever, because I feel like the other one's obviously going to take a little bit more strategery for maybe one side to become victory over the other. And lastly, you know, we have condition cards in Star Wars Legion. They've added this condition chart in SpecOps where everything again is determined by dice rolls. So you roll white dice, it determines the effect, the weather type as you see on here with, you know, hurt, surges, crits, hits, blanks, so on and so forth. And then you roll a red die to determine what rounds that these weather effects will occur. So if you roll, I think if it's a blank, it's rounds 1 and 2. And if you roll any paint, it's going to be rounds 3 and 4, or maybe it's vice versa. But either way, it's just the fact that you're going to have these, potentially have these conditions if you roll paint on the white, and then depending how you roll it on the red, you're going to either get in the first half of the game or the second half of the game, which I think is pretty cool and pretty unique as well. Now, let's talk about these squads that you're going to be using. And I included some of the pictures straight out of the manual just off because, first off, you can list them so you can see what's in there. But I also wanted to show there's some really cool art or new art that they've done for this game mode in the manual, so I appreciate that. So I also just wanted to share it here. But as you can see, as long as you own, you know, probably the main core boxes, or maybe some of the special forces boxes in your existing Legion army, you're going to probably be able to put these squads together with things that you already have. So if you got ARC troopers, you're going to be fine with the the ARC trooper, you know, squad. If you've got just regular clones, you're going to be fine from the clone side. Same for the rebels. Again, if you got rebel troopers, you know, or some pathfinders. Imperial side is going to be heavy on stormtroopers in one squad, but obviously if you got the Imperial Special Forces or like the Inferno Squad box, you're going to be pretty good on the Special Forces side as well. So just depending on what you already own, you can probably just, you know, print out the cards and get ready to go, or get into this with minimum investment. And here's a screenshot of the Galactic Republic as well as the Separatist Alliance. Again, just really dig the new artwork they've got here for the clones and for the droids. Now, let's talk about command cards. So this is print and play. So within the rulebook is all the cards you're going to need to print out. I just thought I'd show some here quickly. So here's the Empire Special Forces Squad. Again, like I said, if you've got the Inferno Squad box or the Special Forces box, you've got these units. Get some scout troopers, you're going to be good there. For the trooper ones, again, you've got some stormtroopers, hopefully you got Ruthie on the Imperial officer from that box set. You're probably going to be pretty set on the trooper squad. Again, these cards, again, have, or like we're used to, have all the rules and how these cards are going to operate, because they are a little different. They're not exactly the same as how you would play in Star Wars Legion. And then here's those loadout cards I talked about, again, the A side and the B side. So you'll pick and choose which one of these you're going to use. And if you notice on the bottom of these ones, you'll notice that it's some are for the infantry squad and some are for the special forces squad. And lastly, we've got the command cards. Again, really digging some of this new artwork that they've got. Like I said, you're going to get 2 squad specific cards, and then you're going to get 3 faction specific cards based off the squad you're going to use, and then the tried and true standing orders card. And these are all print to play. They're in the manual for all the factions. So again, if you have the minis, you can probably play this without purchasing anything net new. So with that, I'd like to wrap everything up. Thank you for watching. And if you made it this far, I'd just like to call out, I am doing a giveaway. I refer to it as the token of my appreciation. Link to it up here. All you need to do is comment on that video and you will be entered to win some custom poker chip order tokens that I had made. There's 25 tokens in the pack. But until next time, hail to the Empire.